So the House will debate a Liberal motion declaring a climate emergency on Thursday. The NDP will beat the government to the punch on Wednesday with its own motion calling on the Prime Minister to declare a climate emergency. Their proposal goes much further than the Liberal proposal. NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh is with me in the studio now. Good to see you again.
Good to see you,
Thanks for being here. Tell me about your motion. What would it do?
So today in the House, I said a motion on climate emergency can't just be words. It must not just be words. It has to go further. So we ask the government to accept a number of criteria for us to really declare a climate emergency. One is a basic thing. The Liberal government and Mr. Trudeau campaigned on ending fossil fuel subsidies. They have yet to do that. It's been almost 4 years. They've not ended those subsidies. We say that it's clear, given the environmental concerns and given the Indigenous community concerns, that Trans Mountain Pipeline should not go ahead. And they've shown a reluctance to understand the importance of that. We also make a really important point that in the fight against climate change and defending the environment, we can never leave workers or communities behind. And so that's why our plan that we're hoping that folks will adopt has an emphasis on making sure that there's good jobs for people, because we know the future of energy in the world cannot be oil and gas. So we need to make sure that there is measures in place so that people have good jobs.
It proposes to cut emissions by half, I think, over what time period?
So what we're looking at is the IPCC report, which says we need to maintain no more than a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in temperature, and that's the timeline of 2030. So we need to make sure we hit that target. To hit that target, it's going to take some bold action in terms of reducing
and so far, everybody seems to agree Canada's not on track to meet its current target. So you're talking about something much deeper. What will that? Have you costed it out? What will it mean for the fossil fuel industries and workers who'll be out of work? What will it mean for extra costs for families to accelerate this target that you're proposing?
Well, we're looking at the cost right now of climate change. We're seeing massive flooding in eastern Canada. We're seeing massive forest fires that are threatening to start earlier and go longer in BC. There's already some forest fires that have begun. So we know that there's a serious cost to Canadian families if we don't do something about climate change. So what we're proposing is a plan that'll lay out significant investments that'll actually create jobs. So one of our plans, for example, is the retrofit plan, which will encourage work and jobs in communities, every community that needs to retrofit their homes. We understand that 70% of the buildings around us today will still be here by 2050. So retrofitting those homes is going to significantly reduce emissions, because the third largest greenhouse gas emitter are buildings. And so that's a part of our plan. We've got electrification of transportation. We're looking at investments in green energy. There's lots of initiatives.
How quickly do you see a Canada with no fossil fuel production?
Well, I think we need to start. And the first step, the concrete step that we can take to get towards that future, is to end subsidies. Like, why would we subsidize a sector that is not going to get us on track in terms of our energy of the future?
Right, but do you have a timeline? 2050? No more fossil fuel production? 2035?
Right, well,
2070?
Our two concrete goals. One is we know that there's the IPCC report that sets out when we need to control the temperature increase. And the other thing is we know that we need to make some serious steps around not just emissions, but investments in green energy. And that's what we're laying out.
The Liberals have a carbon tax rising to $50 a ton by 2022. How much higher would you raise that to try and meet your objectives, or is that a key part of your plan?
Right. We need to have a price on pollution. There's no question about it.
Higher than $50 a ton by 2022?
Well, the problem with the current Liberal plan is that they exempt the biggest polluters. So even if they increase the price, they're exempting the people that are producing the most emissions.
Okay, so are you saying you could nail all the big polluters? You'd lift those exemptions, and then you wouldn't have to change the price on carbon?
So
or you'd still have to raise the price on carbon?
Well, the first step to make sure that we put a price on pollution that's appropriate would be to make sure that there's no exemptions for the biggest polluters. If you pollute, you have to pay. Right now, that's not the case. So that's one thing. But the second thing, and I really want to stress this, that we know from all the experts that simply putting a price on pollution is not enough to reduce emissions. It is not enough on its own. And that's what the Liberals want to focus in on. The Conservatives want to fight against, but neither of them are right, because that is not the solution on its own. Right. They want that to be the debate, but it is not the solution.
We're going to hear some information coming up shortly from David Coletto at Abacus, who says that there's a consensus in the Canadian population that they want lots of things done, not just a price on carbon to deal with.
That's right.
So we'll hear more about that.
That's right.
I want to get clarity from you on your position on a key issue, and that's the LNG mega project, $40 billion project in British Columbia. The BC government, provincial government supports it. You've said in the past that you supported. You thought the consultation process was good. It seemed to get the nod from Jagmeet Singh. Do you still support it?
So BC has one of the best climate change plans in North America. They've done their job. My concern is that they don't have a partner at the federal level. And so my focus is, the fact is, we know the future of our country has to be a future where we're not fracking, we're not burning, and we're not using any oil and gas.
This would require fracking and pipelines for this LNG terminal.
The future of our country is a country, and not just Canada, but the world. The future of the world has to be a world where we're not relying on oil and gas. And the first step that we can do at the federal level is to end those fossil fuel subsidies and to stop a project.
Let me bring you back to focus.
But let me stop. There's a project. There's a project right now.
There's a project right now. Standalone question.
There's a project right now that we have.
It's a standalone question. Do you support if you could shut this terminal down in BC?
There's a project we have right now that we have the ability to influence, and that is a Trans Mountain project. That is not approved. That is a project that is still in the midst of consultation. That is a project we're fighting against. That would increase our emissions dramatically, threaten the coastline, and it's been opposed by Indigenous communities. That's what we're fighting.
If you could shut down the LNG terminal project in BC, would you do it?
The project has already gone way beyond that. My focus is on the future of the country, and that's a future where we're not investing in fossil fuels. And my focus is on a project that's in front of us right now, which is Trans Mountain.
Right.
That's what I'm opposed to.
But understand, I think for a lot of people, this speaks to the clarity of your position and whether or not it's convincing. And you've in the past expressed support for it. Now you seem to be waffling on that support. So it may be a project that's gone down the road, but do you support? It's now, okay, so that horse has left the barn. Do you now support it, or do you oppose it? Do you wish it wasn't going ahead?
My focus is on what I can do and what we can do for the country. And what I think is important for us to do is, what can we do right now as leaders in the country to prevent a future where we're increasing our emissions? What we can do is stop Trans Mountain Pipeline. That pipeline has not been approved. That is in the midst of consultation. That is my focus. That is a concrete thing we can do for the people of this country. That is something concrete for the people of BC.
You said in House of Commons, you said it this week that you oppose fracking. You don't want to see any more fracking.
I'll be really clear on that.
Yeah.
Our future of not just Canada, but the world is a future where we're not burning, we're not fracking any fossil fuels.
Okay, the future.
That is a future for Canada.
That's what the future is. So the future from now on, but it doesn't apply to the LNG project in BC.
The future is, that's the future of that, and everyone knows
so fracking's okay there, but no more fracking. Is that it?
IPCC has made it clear. All experts have made it clear. The future energy source for our planet cannot be fossil fuels. It has to be renewable energy, and that's what I'm committed to do. To do that, we need to stop federal investments, federal subsidies of the fossil fuel sector. That is a concrete step. We've got to stop a project that the government is trying to push through right now. That is our focus. That's a practical way to deal with the problem of climate change, and that's what we're fighting.
We've got about 30 seconds left. This attempt to bring clarity to the position on climate change, how much of that is related to what appears to be the rise of the Greens and their win of that by-election in Nanaimo Ladysmith at the expense of the NDP? Not at all. You're not worried about the Greens at all?
Not a focus of ours at all. We, weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I put out a comment really clearly saying the future of energy in our country cannot be fossil fuel, oil and gas. It cannot be. And I said that weeks ago. Jack Layton was the first to come forward with bold initiatives around climate change accountability and emissions accountability. It's something that our party has long stood for, and I'm going to continue that tradition.
All right, Jagmeet Singh, always good to talk to you. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.